Auburn's basketball season may still be a long way off, but that doesn't mean we don't have things to talk about, especially as it pertains to the schedule. Got a new game, a new matchup to look forward to for the upcoming season. Let's talk about that, who that is, and what it means for Auburn basketball. But before we do that, I want to welcome you back to the channel. Whether you're a member of the Auburn family or a fan of another persuasion, this is the E2C Network, where we cover the whole of the Auburn experience. We might tend to be a little bit Auburn sports heavy here, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our content, and we appreciate members of our booster club like Devin Wistrom, who help produce videos like this. The last season for Auburn is getting further into the rearview mirror, and there's few things to really talk about from that previous team. We start looking more towards the upcoming season, and now we have some new news about the schedule, because we're starting to finally piece together what games and what the schedule will look like for Auburn basketball for the 2022-2023 season. Well, today on June 3rd, Friday, June 3rd, Auburn and USC confirmed what had been speculated by many insiders, including one John Rothstein, who broke a story saying that they were going to do a home and away series earlier on in the week. Again, confirmed by both schools, they will start playing this upcoming season on December 18th, which is a Monday, I believe, if I've got my calendar correct in my head. The one for the upcoming season, which will be in the 2023 part of that athletic year. That one has not had a date set officially yet, but you can probably expect it to be somewhat similar to what we'll see this time around in December 18th. Usually one of the first questions that always pops into people's minds is, hey, have we ever played USC before? Well, we were supposed to. We were supposed to in this previous tournament. They were supposed to win their first round game. We were supposed to win ours, which we did, and then eventually beat them and move on to the third round, but that didn't really work out for either of us too well, did it? No, in fact, both teams were actually beat by Miami, which was one of the, we'll call them somewhat of a Cinderella team of the previous men's basketball tournament for the 2021-22 year. But let's not lament about the things that didn't work out for either of us. Let's talk about us going forward and how maybe we match up with each other. Just some facts that maybe you want to know about the USC Trojans. Most of you that are college basketball fans will be familiar that USC, most years, is at least in contention for the Pac-12 championship and is usually one of the higher ranked teams. In fact, they were last year, and they usually are a very good recruiting program. Last year, the Trojans were 26-8 and earned that number 7 seed as part of the same regional as Auburn, and we already addressed how that went for both of us. Not digging that up again. I'm going to try not to. To put things into perspective of where they are as a program right now, well, last season their record was 26-8. Very, very admirable, very good resume for them. They also had a top 10 recruiting class for this cycle. So even though they might be losing talent just like Auburn did, obviously they have the ability to reload very well. So don't expect there to be too much of a drop-off, if any, from the Trojans. Now, if you're interested in more history about Auburn and USC, well, there's not a lot of it in terms of men's basketball meetups. There are actually only 2 times that they've played, and sadly, for us Auburn fans, USC is 2-0 in those times. In the 70s is when we saw each other twice, 1977 and 1972. Both times the Trojans got the better of us, either at their event that they were holding for a tournament type of thing or at a neutral site tournament event, competition, whatever you want to call it. Both of the times they got the better of us. It's high time that changed, especially on their home court. So now that we know a little bit about what to expect from the matchup, when it is, kind of the importance of where the two programs are at, maybe a little bit about what the matchup is going to look like, let's look about what this news means for the overall schedule. To do that, let's look at the breakdown of the non-conference schedule thus far. Now remember, this hasn't been officially announced as a non-conference schedule completely yet. While dates have been officially announced, not necessarily the complete thing, so things are always subject to change. For right now, on November 7th, George Mason, which we previously talked about in another video you can go check out. On November 11th, South Florida. On November 15th, as part of the Cancun Classic, Auburn will take on Winthrop in Auburn, but then go to the Cancun Classic to take on Bradley on November 22nd. And also on November 23rd, they'll take on the winner of Liberty or Northwestern. On November 27th, St. Louis, and now on December 18th, Southern California as part of that non-conference schedule. Now there's also Washington and Appalachian State, which are part of this non-conference schedule with dates that have not been set yet. More on one of those in just a little bit. So this is the part of the video where I want to take the news item and talk about what it means for the program. And obviously it's just, we know a little bit more about the schedule and when this actual game is going to take place. We won't really know much more about the game itself until we get closer to that time in terms of what the makeup of Auburn is versus Southern Cal. But what we can talk about is some schedule, what it means for Auburn going forward, because I do think this has big implications for what the schedule will look like, especially non-conference wise going forward into the rest of the year. I told you we're going to talk about that Washington game again, and here's the reason why. They try to always schedule these things logistically where they make the most sense, so a team, especially when they're separated so far apart, like Auburn would be from the West Coast, they don't have to do it several times. Well, I think that probably means that you're going to see that Washington game, which is at Washington, tacked on the end or the beginning of this trip out to LA. Now, for my estimation, I did some brief looking around at the academic calendars for Auburn and Washington, and to me it makes the most sense for the Washington game to happen right before Christmas, right after, maybe midweek, I forget the date I kind of estimated in my head, but a few days after that December 18th game with USC. So that's something with logistics and could determine when that Washington game will actually happen. Now let's talk about the overall strength of Auburn's non-conference schedule. Obviously, one of the big things that committees look for when they're putting you or not putting you in the tournament is your overall record, but especially how you performed against teams not in your conference, especially those on the road. This has the potential right now not just be the headliner of the non-conference resume for Auburn, but one that could be a quality road quad one win against a team that is right now annually in the minds of everybody in college basketball. And I think it's going to be extremely important for Auburn to take this and what will likely be a big road trip with Washington as well as an opportunity to set themselves up for success come tournament selection time. Now, what else it could mean is more in the form of a question for me is, will Auburn get a bigger name than USC on their schedule? Because I've already called them the headliner thus far of their non-conference schedule, and they likely could be the biggest name on that non-conference list when it's all fleshed out. Now, I think there still is plenty of room because right now you see typically about 12 non-conference games, give or take a few with situations and things like that if games aren't completed or other situations we won't get into. Right now, Auburn only has about 7 set, quote unquote, on the thing because there's not dates set and things like that for some of those things, but expected 7 non-conference games and opponents that are scheduled somewhat. So there's 5 positions left, which means you're going to probably fill most of those with some smaller teams that you want to tune up with, not necessarily cupcakes, because Bruce is very good about scheduling smaller teams which are very formidable, but I think there's room for one more bigger to mid-level name right there that could be a good builder for this resume. So that's the news of the Auburn versus USC game starting this season and leading into next season. I'm excited about this one to see someone we haven't had a lot of interaction with at all in college basketball. And of course, we need to fix that record. And hopefully we'll start that process this year in LA and return the favor again in Auburn next year. Now in the comment section, I want to hear your thoughts about this schedule update. What do you think about the matchup? Is there anybody else that you'd like to see added to the non-conference schedule? Let's keep the conversation going down below. If you enjoyed this type of content, please do help support it by smashing the like button. And if you want more from us, be sure to subscribe along with hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads or live streams. There's ways to help support our content listed in the description of this video. You can become a channel member here by hitting that join button, or you can head over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the booster club there for $1 a month starting as well. Thank you for tuning into the E2C Network, where we cover the whole of the Auburn experience. War Eagle.